So first, we will consider short run. What is short run? It is a period of time in which capital is fixed while labor is varied or can be changed. And for each level of output, there is a level of cost associated with the level of output. And in the second part of this chapter, we will advise Khalid, who has a farm producing tomatoes, what is the optimal? This is a very important question. What is the optimal level of output that can maximize his profit? So in this chapter, there are two important topics. The first one, there is a calculation question in calculation file. Maybe next meeting we will see it. And the second important point is the class test. Sorry, the case study associated with this chapter about fruit and vegetable market in Al-Uwair. So again, we have two important points. One, there is a calculation question in the file of calculation and the case study of Al-Uwair market. And consider also the deadline to submit your case study. Each pair of students should work together to submit one report, including answers of 4 case studies. So in the first part of this chapter, we will discuss costs. And in the second part of this chapter, we will advise Khalid about the optimal level of output that maximizes cost. This chapter is quite easy, especially if you understand chapter 5 about production. So again, when I analyze costs, I consider the short run. What is a short run? It is a period of time in which the scale of operation or the size of the factory is fixed. That means some factors of production are fixed, which is capital, and we assume labor is variable. So we have two kinds of costs. Why we have two kinds of costs? Because we have two kinds of resources. We have fixed resources. For example, Khalid rents a land. So the fixed resources is the land rented by Khalid. So he has to pay the rent. So the rent is fixed cost. And the second kind of resources, which is labor. So he has to pay wages. So the wages are called variable cost. So now to produce a certain amount of output or tomatoes, Khalid has to pay rent, which is fixed cost, and wages, which is called variable cost. Let me start with Insaf. Insaf, are you with me? Insaf is absent.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sorry.
You are with me. Fixed cost?
Any cost that does not depend on the firm's level of output. These costs are incurred even in the firm is producing nothing. There are no fixed costs in the long run.
Okay. So what I'm talking about the rent. Assume Khalid pays 1,000 dirhams as rent, regardless of the quantity produced, whether he produces 1 kilo, 10 kilos, 5,000 kilos, or 0. He has to pay the rent. He signed the contract to pay a rent of 1,000 dirhams monthly. Definitely, there is no fixed cost in the long run. Why? because he can rent another piece of land. So all resources are variable in the long run. So let's focus on the short run. So this is fixed cost. What is variable cost in SAF?
Variable cost is a cost that depends on the level of production chosen.
Okay, so now I'm talking about wages. So if Khalid wants to increase output, to increase tomatoes produced, he has to hire more workers. He has to pay more wages. If he decides to produce zero, he will not hire anybody. So the wages will be zero. So variable cost depends on the level of output. If you remember, when we consider total product is a function of labor. So if you want to produce more, you have to hire more workers. Total cost in SAF.
Total cost is a fixed cost plus variable costs.
Okay, so what is total cost? We have two kinds of costs, fixed costs and variable costs. Let's say simply, I say simply. So fixed cost, let's say the rent. Variable costs such as the wages. So we are still with fixed cost in SAF.
Fixed cost, total fixed cost, TFC or overhead, is the total of all costs that do not change with output even if output is zero.
Okay, so see here, this is a quantity produced, 0, 1 kilo, 5 kilos of tomatoes. Total fixed costs, which is simply the rent. So Khalid has to pay rent 1,000 dirhams per month, regardless of the quantity produced. We call total fixed costs or overhead, or also called sunk cost, because we cannot avoid paying the rent. We have another term called average fixed cost. Average fixed cost. So write notes about the formulas, even they are easy. So average fixed cost equals total fixed cost divided by quantity produced. So if Khalid produces 2 kilos and he pays 1,000 as rent, so each kilo will incur a fixed cost equal to 500. If he produces 5 units, so 1,000 divided by 5 equals 200. What will be average fixed cost if he produces 1,000 kilos of tomatoes? What will be average fixed cost if he produces 1,000 kilos of tomatoes? Could you calculate it for me? So if Khalid decides to produce 1,000 units of output, what will be average fixed cost? So average fixed cost, total fixed cost, which is 1,000, it doesn't change, divided by output, which is 1,000. So average fixed cost will equal 1 dirham. So it seems to be, to lighten the heavy rent, it's better for Khalid to produce as much as he can from the view of fixed cost. Also, we call fixed cost sunk costs with INSAF.
Sunk cost is another name for fixed costs in the short run because firms have no choice but to pay them.
So we call it fixed cost, overhead, sunk costs, because we have to pay 1,000 dirhams monthly rent regardless of the output. But if you feel the rent is heavy and to make your project profitable, you have to produce as much as you can. So the average fixed cost will be small amount. So each unit produced, each kilo produced will incur a cost, fixed cost equal to, for example, 1 dirham. If I produce 2,000 kilos, average fixed cost will be 50 fils. So it's better to produce as much as we can. So let's see in the end whether Khalid will earn a profit or he will incur a loss. Insaf.
Average fixed cost is the total fixed cost divided by the number of units of output, a per unit measure of fixed cost.
Okay, so what is average fixed cost? Equals total fixed cost divided by quantity produced. Since total fixed cost is 1,000 dirhams per month, if Khalid produced 2,000 kilos of tomatoes, average fixed cost will be 0.50 or 50 fils. So it's better to produce as much as Khalid can. So now we have two diagrams. We have two diagrams. The first one is for total fixed cost. So total fixed cost is 1,000, whether Khalid produces 0 or 1 unit or even 5 units. So if I produce 5 units, total, put a dot, total fixed cost equal 1,000. If I produce 3 units, total fixed cost 1,000. For this reason, total fixed cost curve is a straight line parallel to the quantity axis at 1,000. While average fixed cost decreases as output increases. So here we put dollars and here we put output. So average fixed cost decreases as output increases, but it will never be 0. So see here, if I produce 5 units, average fixed cost will be 200. If I produce 1,000, average fixed cost will be 1 dirham. If I produce 2,000, average fixed cost will be 50 fils. So average fixed cost decreases as output increases. Insaf.
Spreading overhead is the process of dividing total fixed cost by more units of output. Average fixed cost declines as quantity rises.
Okay, so to lighten the difficulty of paying high fixed cost, you have to produce as much as you can. So average fixed cost will decrease as output increases. So think about Ittisalat. Ittisalat incurs heavy millions of dirhams as fixed cost for using complicated technology. So they have to produce millions of calling units, million of units. So for this reason, the cost per unit from fixed cost will be a small amount. So let's go now to total variable cost. Thank you, Insaf. Let me go to Mayar. Mayar, assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام دكتور.
You are with me. Okay, Mayar. Total variable cost.
Do you want me to read it out for you, doctor?
Yes, please.
Total variable cost, the total of all costs that vary with output in the short run.
Okay, so see here, total variable cost, an easy way, consider it as wages for labor. So if Khalid decides to produce more, he has to hire more workers, he has to pay more wages. So variable cost increases as output increases. So let's think about total variable cost curves, which take somehow similar to total product curve, if you remember total product curve. Mayar. Mayar is absent.
I'm here, doctor. Sorry. Do you want me to read the total variable cost curve?
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry. A graph that shows the relationship between total variable cost and the level of a firm's output.
Okay, so for each level of output, there is a level of variable cost. So we put them in a graph. So this curve is called total variable cost. So total variable cost increases as output increases. But if you concentrate, there is a point in the middle called inflection point. So in the first stage of production, as output increases by additional unit, total variable cost increases at a decreasing rate. Why? Because of specialization and division of labor. If you remember, in this stage, total product increases at an increasing rate, causing total variable cost to increase at a decreasing rate. After the inflection point, maybe this paragraph is complicated, but I will repeat it so you will be familiar with it. After the inflection point, as output increases, total variable cost increases at an increasing rate, increases faster. So the additional unit of output will cause total variable cost to increase as much in higher amount. So maybe I will hire additional worker to produce additional 1 kilo. Because we reach to the full capacity, it will be more difficult to increase output. So why total variable cost increases at an increasing rate? Because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. If you remember, total product in the second stage of production increases at a decreasing rate, causing variable cost to increase at an increasing rate. Okay. So this is total fixed cost. It is constant at 1,000 regardless of the output. What is total cost? It is the sum of variable cost and fixed cost. So what I will do, I will take variable cost, bring it up, keep the vertical distance between two curves, the vertical distance between two curves, total cost and variable cost, equals to fixed cost. So any dot on total cost equals total variable cost plus total cost. Now, marginal cost is important. So marginal cost is important. So we discussed in chapter 5 marginal product of labor. And now marginal cost of labor. There is sort of similarity between them. Mayar.
Yes, doctor. Do you want me to read the meaning of marginal cost?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir. So marginal cost is the increase in total cost that results from producing one more unit of output Marginal costs reflect changes in variable costs.
Okay, so what is marginal cost? It is the change in total cost or even total variable cost due to a change in output. So if I decided to increase additional kilo of tomatoes, total cost or total variable cost will increase. This increase is called marginal cost. So see here this numerical example. So output increased from 1 unit to 2 units. Total variable cost increased from 10 to 18. So what is the increase in total variable cost? 18 minus 10 equal 8. So 8 dirhams is the marginal cost of the second unit. That means when I decided to produce additional unit, which is the second unit, total variable cost increased by 8 dirhams. So what is marginal cost? It is the increase, the change in total variable cost or total cost. I love curves. I love curves. So this is marginal product of labor. So marginal product of labor increases in the first stage of production. Why? Because total product. So please listen. I know what I'm going to say. It's a bit difficult, but I'm repeating what I said before. So while you are listening, hopefully you will catch the concept. So we have 3 stages of production. In this graph, I ignored the third stage. So again, in the first stage of production, marginal product increases. Why? Because total product increases at an increasing rate because of specialization and division of labor. So that's nice. For this reason, marginal cost decreases. Why? Because total variable cost increases at a decreasing rate for the same reason, specialization and division of labor. In the second stage of production, because of the law of diminishing marginal returns, marginal product decreases. Why? Because total product increases at an increasing rate. Increases at a decreasing rate, sorry. So total product increases at a decreasing rate because of the law of diminishing marginal returns, causing marginal product to decline. So that means the situation become more difficult because marginal product decreases. It means marginal cost increases. Producing additional unit will be more difficult, more costly. Why marginal cost increases? Because total variable cost increases at an increasing rate for the same reason, the law of diminishing marginal returns. So again, to remember these two graphs, marginal product takes the shape of the letter N, while marginal cost takes the shape of the letter U. So please keep marginal cost, the shape of marginal cost in your mind. We will need it later. We will need it when we solve calculation question, when we solve the case study. So what's here, as you hire more workers, after a certain point, total product will increase at a decreasing rate because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. That means total variable cost increases at an increasing rate, causing marginal cost to increase. So additional unit will cost the company more. So what's in this graph? In the first stage of, so I see here, there is nothing new. I'm just repeating what I explained. So in the first stage of production, from 0 to the inflection point, total variable cost increases at a decreasing rate because of specialization and division of labor. Since total variable cost increases at a decreasing rate, that means marginal cost will decrease, because the slope of variable cost is the marginal cost. So the slope of variable cost is the marginal cost. And after the inflection point, total variable cost increases at an increasing rate, increases faster because of the law of diminishing marginal returns, causing marginal cost to increase. So the minimum point of marginal cost will be corresponding to the inflection point on total variable cost.
Average variable cost. Total variable cost divided by the number of units of output.
Okay, so you remembered we finished average fixed cost. Now average variable cost. Average variable cost equals total variable cost divided by quantity produced. What is average fixed cost? Equals total fixed cost divided by quantity produced. We have two kinds of resources. Fixed resources, let's say the land, and variable resources, which is labor. So we have two kinds of costs. The first one, fixed costs, such as the rent, and variable costs, such as the wages. So for each unit produced, we incur a cost. What is the cost? Part of the rent, part of wages. So for each unit, if I say, for example, this kilo of tomatoes costs me 3 dirhams, that means 1 dirham to cover the rent, 2 dirhams to cover the wages. Okay. Look at this table. So quantity, which is kilos of tomatoes produced by Khalid, he will start using the land from producing 0, and then 1 kilo, 2 kilo, up to 500 kilos. Total variable cost increases as output increases. He needs more hours of labor. So total variable cost, consider it as wages. What is marginal cost? Marginal cost is the change in total variable cost due to a change in output by 1 unit. So for example, look at the number in red. And I explained this example before. So total variable cost increased from 10 to 18 due to an increase in output from 1 to 2. So what we say to calculate marginal cost, the change in total variable cost, 18 minus 10, divided by a change in output, 2 minus 1, it is 1. So the result will be 8. What is 8? 8 is the marginal cost, or the cost of the last unit, the second unit. What is average variable cost? Total variable cost, 18, divided by output, 2. 18 divided by 2 equals 9. So in this example, we assumed Khalid pays rent of 1,000 dirhams as monthly rent, regardless of the quantity produced, whether he produced 0 or 500, he has to pay 1,000. What is total cost? Total cost equals total variable cost plus total fixed cost. So at 2 units, total fixed cost 1,000 plus total variable cost 18. So total cost will be 1,018. What is average fixed cost? average fixed cost equals total fixed cost 1,000 divided by output 2. So 1,000 divided by 2 equals 500. What is average total cost? Average total cost. So how much this kilo of tomatoes costs me averagely? So we have two methods. The first one, go to total cost 1018 divided by 2 units. So equal 509. Or find the sum of two averages. Average fixed cost 500 plus average variable cost 9. So you will get average total cost. So again, if Khalid said this kilo, I mean the second kilo, costs me 509, so he's thinking about part of the rent and part of wages. So it is technology. It is technology. So this is average variable cost and marginal cost. If the marginal cost is less than average variable cost, the average will decrease. If the marginal is above than the average variable cost, the average will increase. So marginal cost is the leader. So marginal cost will lead the average variable cost. See here, assume two students take a quiz. One got 10, another one got 0. So the average 5. And then a third student got makeup exam. So if he got a result, less than 5, the new average will decrease. If he got a mark more than 5, the average will increase. The rising portion of marginal cost will cut the minimum point of the rising portion of marginal cost will cut the minimum point of average variable cost. So we explained this before, but just to review. So total variable cost in the first stage of production increases at a decreasing rate because of specialization and division of labor. And then we have inflection point, and we will enter to the second stage of production. In the second stage of production, total variable cost increases at an increasing rate because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Total fixed cost is fixed at 1,000 regardless of output to produce. How to draw total cost? Drag variable cost up and keep the vertical distance between them equal to total fixed cost. So this is called total cost, which is equal to variable cost and fixed cost. So again, what I said, average total cost with always.
Average total cost. Total cost divided by the number of units of output.
Okay, how to calculate? So Mr. Khalid produced 2 kilos of tomatoes and he incurred a total cost of 1,018. So average total cost will be 509. Another method to calculate average total cost, which is average fixed cost 500, from where 500, 1,000 divided by 2, 500. And average variable cost 18, from where I got 18, variable cost 18 divided by 2. So average variable cost will be 18. 500 plus 9 equals average total cost. It is technology. So this is marginal cost, average total cost, average variable cost. So if the marginal is less than the average will decrease. If the marginal is above than the average will increase. The rising portion of marginal cost cuts the minimum point of average variable cost first, and then the minimum point of average total cost. And in the lower panel of this diagram, average fixed cost. Average fixed cost decreases as output increases. As output increases. Okay. So there is a difficult question. Look at the upper panel of per unit cost curves. If you look here, I kept the vertical distance between average total cost and average variable cost. Why does the vertical distance between these two curves decreases as output increases? Let me repeat the question. Look here at the vertical distance between two curves. So here, if I produce 100, the vertical distance equal 10 dirhams. If I produce 400, the vertical distance between two curves equal 250. So it seems to be the vertical distance decreases as output increases. Why? The answer is quite easy, because average fixed cost decreases as output increases. So what is average total cost? Equal average variable cost and average fixed cost. So the vertical distance, see here, for example, at this dot, this is average variable cost, and this is average total cost. So the vertical distance refers to average fixed cost. So again, the vertical distance between average total cost and average variable cost equals average fixed cost. So average fixed cost, if I produce 400, average fixed cost equals 250. So the vertical distance at 400 units of output also equals 250, because the vertical distance between average total cost and average variable cost equals to average fixed cost. So I explained the relationship between average total cost and marginal cost. If marginal cost is lower than the average will decrease. If the marginal is above than the average will increase. So this is another numerical question for your practice. This is also another numerical question for your practice. So we reach to this slide.